Okay, what we're gonna do is, now that I'm away from you guys, I can take that off for a second. The plan is that we're going to put a zipper in the top of this simple top loader bag, and it's going to be self-lined, meaning we're going to use this really nice wax or water resistant, just WR canvas. So it will essentially be the exact same on the inside as the outside. That's why we have 4 pieces, the exact same shape. Okay, 4 pieces like this. We're going to put this zipper right in the top here. And what we want to do is cleanly finish off both sides of the tape, the upper and the bottom. So to do this, it's going to be really simple. You guys, once you see it, you're like, yeah, I know that. That's exactly what I would think would happen. But it sort of doesn't occur to you until you do it. So I have my zipper face up like this. I'm going to put one edge of my fabric along the edge of the tape, covering it up, like going the wrong way, right? Now I'm also going to sandwich one underneath this zipper in the exact same position, but right under it. So essentially we have a zipper sandwich right in between this really nice canvas, okay? And so you want to make sure, because we don't have any stoppers on this zipper because we made it ourselves, you need to make sure you're not going to pull this zipper off or slide it off by pushing it too close to the zipper or the presser foot, because that'll happen without you even knowing it. So I'm going to slip this down a little bit. And you want to just start sewing right in the middle of your zipper tape, catching all of those layers in at once. Now that's eliminating a lot of potential steps. And if you are worried about it being strong enough to last, you could go over it a second time or use a stronger thread. Always smaller stitches will make something stronger. And as well, if you would like to get ultra close to the zipper coil, you would want to use your zipper presser foot so you can butt right up to it. Now to get this really consistent line, this width away from the zipper teeth, I pulled the zipper pull down, but while my needle is in my project, I want to lift the presser foot and slide the pull back up so he's out of the way again. And then I can continue making this one side of our self-lined zipper top load bag. You also want to pretty consistently check to see if your work is still in the right place, that you're getting everything really consistently lined up. So that one side now is going to open up and live on the one side but folded back. So now you have now you have one side of your zipper tape that has a finished folded edge on the top as well as the bottom. And now you're just going to top stitch that down all the way across the top. And so this is a really nice finishing step. So if you use a really heavy thread, like a really industrial, nice, heavy tex thread, even like a denim thread would be cool on this, then it gives it a really high quality look, that everything is just super durable. You do want to make sure that your folds for each side of this, the lining and the face of the project, are sitting right on top of each other before you sew that top stitch. So I would do that with the other two pieces, and I'm going to do that really quickly. It'll take me 30 seconds, but then we'll have two sides to make our box square, our box squares for our bag, or box corners. You guys, I'm legit dyslexic, so hang with me when I'm like searching for my words, okay? Okay, so let me just run a top stitch, and then I'm going to throw this other side on there. I wish I had a nicer thread with me, then we could make this an actual little, like, toiletry dock kit bag. Ooh, the thread is horrible. Okay, and anyway, though, I think our zipper is broken too. Oh well. Okay, so I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. I'm sandwiching the side of the tape good to good, so I can encase the edge of the tape and the raw side of my fabric material all together. It's important that you line up the edges. You want to go by your previous fabric pieces, so you can line those up instead of going by the ends of your zipper. Okay, so that's our other side of our bag. Now we have a fully finished zipper. That is nicely finished off on the face of the project as well as the underneath of the project. So that is a way to line with the zipper at the very top. Some bags will have a complete other section at the top with your zipper. So you would have your walls go up, and then you would have a gusset at the very top, and that's where you would set in your zipper, and you would do the same thing. You would just have more pieces to work with. So you would have a little section where you do this same exact idea, and it would only be like this big instead of long as the whole bag, right? And that would be your top area finished off completely. Now when you do this, you're going to have some areas inside that you need to finish off, and that can be done with binding, or any way you can get creative to make the inside really nice and finished off. Usually it's done with some binding, so you can just Hong Kong finish the seams and make them really pretty. Okay, really quick, I want to go through a hypothetical with you guys. Since this layer in here is your lining, let's say you wanted to put a tiny little pocket, zipper pocket in here. Has anybody done that before? No? So what you would do, you would decide how big you want your pocket, right? Let's say we want just a little square. And so you guys can see it, I'm going to use the muslin fabric. I'm going to cut an arbitrary size for my pocket, but you would choose this with like some sort of reason behind it, depending on what the pocket's used for. Is it just cell phone, or is it whatever type of pencil holder? But this is not a patch pocket. This is a zipper opening in your lining of the bag. So you need two little sections of whatever fabric you're lining with, or whatever fabric you're using to make your pocket bag with. Let's say this is my little pocket bag. I'm creating a pocket with this. On the side that you're going to apply to the lining, we're going to create a tiny opening as long as your zipper needs to be. And how I do that is I draw a section, and I almost always use a 1/2 inch, just because that normally works with the size zipper that I work with. You need to leave a little bit of space at the top, like 1 inch, but I would center where the height of my zipper opening would be, and then I would give it a 1/4 inch on either side to create a full 1/2 inch. And then I would give myself enough room for sewing on the ends. So at the very least 1/2 inch, but more like 1 inch is better. So stop your zipper opening about 1 inch from the sides. Give yourselves those little triangles that we do for welt pockets, remember? And that's the same thing that you're doing for this opening, same as the welt pockets that we do. So I would place this on my project exactly where I wanted it. Make sure it was in the right position. Consider what your bag is going to do once you put your box corners in there. It's going to make this curve up like this, so you don't want to put it too low. You don't want to put it too high because this will also take up some volume by going like that. So put it right in in a good height, safe from either sides. And then just centered is usually what people do. And you're gonna sew right through this lining, the inside layer. You want to sew all the way around that box with a small stitch, just like we do with the welt pockets. And normally this shape, this opening for your zipper would be patterned into your bag patterns, right? So you would have like a little punch hole to tell you where the center and how long your pocket opening is going to be. It's really important to get right on the corners, like you guys know. That's how it keeps it really crisp. You don't want to overdo it with the back stitches because that makes things bulky and bumpy in that area, whereas you're just going to cut this and turn it inside out. So this, again, you're sewing it good to good. So if we have this sewn all the way around, just like normal, I'm gonna cut down that line, stopping right at the triangle. And that's allowing me to create a finished box, a long rectangle that I can then place my zipper right into. So it's pretty simple in that regard. So I would cut those perfectly to the corner, and then you're able to turn that piece of your pocket bag in to the inside, and you would iron it, of course. You would choose a fabric that wouldn't stand out like that, right? For this piece of your pocket bag that's right toward the outside like that, normally I would do out of the same exact fabric. And then you can do whatever type of lining fabric on the other side. That doesn't matter. You'll see that when you open the zipper. So you sort of have to finagle it, iron it down really well, make sure all your corners are pulled. Then you would place your zipper face down in this rectangle that you just created, right? And after you place your zipper in, then you can sew up the other side of your pocket bag by stitching it all the way around. Okay, so that is the theoretical zippered pocket on the inside using your lining. Now to do the quick box corners to finish off this bag. Is everybody okay to see this up here? Sorry that it feels like I'm like neglecting it. This is difficult to see everybody. Okay, so you would turn it good to good, right? To get your side seams first. Now a proper bag would have little tabs built in on the end of your zipper. And that's all sort of engineered into the shape, so everything looks better. Like you would never have this scenario where we are just sewing right on the zipper at the very corner like this. Maybe really cheap bags, but no bag that you would make would be like this. Okay, so I'm back-tacking pretty good. Sewing at our normal 1/2 inch. I'm going to check to make sure all my layers are good, lined up with each other pretty good, not pulling weird. You can either go all the way across or all the way around, or you can do one side at a time, so things don't get pushed along weirdly, so it seems more evenly distributed when things are spread from the presser foot. Always walk your needle through zipper teeth, right? Because that will get you right in the eyeball, for sure, every time. Just kidding. Okay, so I'm finishing up this last side. And I also want to finish up this bottom. So right now, we have a pretty flat bag. This is a project that has like no dimension to it. So we want to change that. We don't want a flat bag. That's like a mail holder or like a pencil holder. We want to make something more dimensional, more like a dot kit. Because this is around the size. And when you put in these box corners, they severely shorten and make the project look smaller, even though the volume is staying the same. But it does change how it, aesthetically, physically, how it looks, how big it looks. Okay, so there are two different ways how to do this. Some people will have this sewn in a way that is more complete, and they will do some like origami stuff to the sides. They press it out. Of course, it needs to be right side out. You always want to cut your corners out, just like I didn't do, but just for time's sake. Okay, let's say that these corners are pretty and we cut our seam allowance off in the corners and now it's laying really good. Let's just say that for a second, okay? So you would have corners like this, and the pattern might change a little bit when you're doing it this way, but you can just work however shape you want into this bag. And if it's done like this, you'll see on like newer style bags that people will do this type of forming and keep this area right here. It makes a little triangle right on the seam. There we go. And you would put like a little spot right there, or rivet. Some people call them spots. you would put like a little rivet or grommet right there, and that would hold it to the bag. Now the way that I always do it is by cutting out the corners themselves, by removing those little sections. Now let's say we want a corner that's going to be 2 inches. Since this is a small bag, we're going to do a 2-inch corner where the seam comes in the middle and it splits into a 2-inch T. That means we have to take away 1 inch out of the inside of the sew line. Because if it's going to be split, that inch is going to make up the other half, or the other part of the 2 inches. So I have my stitched corner right here. I want to take away an inch, a square inch from the inside of that seam, not counting the seam allowance, but I'm going to take away a full square inch from the inside of our sew line. Now just straight up cut that away. Oopsie, I forgot seam allowance, because we're going to take another 1/2 inch, or that's arbitrary how wide you sew at, but you gotta take that into consideration. So now we have a box like that, empty, right? And you want to just pop it open. Do what it would do when it would be a, I cannot tell if that is even visible to you guys. So you're basically forcing it into that 3D shape, right? I'm making my side seam right here, opening up the 2 layers of the seam allowance and pressing it flat, and I'm making it meet the seam at the bottom. Doing the same thing with the seam allowance. I'm evening it out, and I'm leaving 2 layers of the seam allowance on either side so it's evenly distributed. But so now I have these 2 seams sitting right on top of each other, and it's going to create this little area that I can sew. Good, I wish I could show that better somehow. But does that make sense? So I cut that square and I sandwiched it together, squishing the side seam down right on top of the bottom seam. And once they are laying directly on top of each other, I can sew that, which I'm going to do 1/2 inch again. So that's going to add another inch to my square. I forgot about the seam allowance for when I'm sewing as well. So now we're going to have a 3 inch, or around about 3 inch T. So now it looks like this. And the same on the other side. You want to cut this pretty good. This is another section that you would bind with some bias binding. And then when you pull it back around, you have this nice little box corner. So remember that mistake that I just made. When you're figuring out how long you want your box corner to be, you have to take away inside of the seam allowance, and that's doubled. Whatever you took away, because that's 2 layers being squanched together, and then include your seam allowance, what you're going to be taking away with your seam allowance, your sew line. Right? And that is how you get a little box corner. And now we have a really terrible little dot kit that we can use around the classroom. With the zipper broken and everything. Okay, what's the last thing that we needed to talk about? Or is that everything? No, I think that's it, everybody. Okay, so let me real quick